Imagine a world without Gertrude Elion. Imagine a world without Ruth Wakefield. Imagine a world without Elijah McCoy. Imagine a world without Mary Anderson. Imagine a world without Madame Curie. What is the common link between chocolate chip cookies, the X-ray, and the windshield wiper? All were discovered or created by people from what we call designated groups. Not superheroes, but ordinary people who happen to be women, people from racial minorities, people with disabilities, and Aboriginal peoples. Ontario is just as rich in human resources as this library. Employment equity guarantees we will all share in this wealth. To take advantage of the knowledge in a book, you have to read it. To take advantage of a person's talent, you have to provide opportunities. In 1937, Gertrude Elion couldn't find a job. But Gertrude would soon have her chance. The drain of the Second World War dramatically impacted labor pools all across the Allied nations. And one of the results was a shortage of scientists to fill now empty labs. Gertrude then went on to patent 45 important drugs, including treatments for leukemia and herpes. Her brilliance was recognized in 1988 when she was awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine. And all of these life-saving discoveries almost didn't happen because of employment barriers that existed in the workplace. What's equally frightening is to imagine what inventions and what innovations might never have been created because of these barriers. Because for every Gertrude Elion, there might have been hundreds, perhaps thousands who quit, who weren't permitted to make their contribution to society simply because of employment barriers. And that situation still exists today. For example, if this pile of books represents all the jobs in medical research, the field that employed Gertrude Elion, these are the jobs held by women.
Bertha Wilson's recent report on women in the legal profession has shown that even among very highly trained women, they are seriously disadvantaged professionally. These observations can be extended to other designated groups and would show even greater disadvantage if extended to women of color or women with disabilities.
Statistically, Aboriginal peoples living off reserve earn 26% less than the national average. On reserve, they earn 42% less.
Although Aboriginal women in Ontario have close to the same workforce participation rate as non-Aboriginal women, there's a large discrepancy in annual incomes.
Persons with disabilities have an unemployment rate twice the total labor force's unemployment rate. 30% of unemployed persons with disabilities report they have been refused a job because of a disability.
As I've talked to some deaf people that I know, friends of mine in the area, I've noticed that none of them are satisfied with the jobs that they have. And they also don't feel that disabled people have been given a fair opportunity in their jobs.
A study by the Social Planning Council found that for every job offer a black person receives, his or her white counterpart receives 3.
The network believes the strong employment equity legislation will create a more equitable, fair, and just workforce where skill, knowledge, and experience will be the criteria in all aspects of employment.
And we have a lot of individual cases that have come to our local chapters with complaints around discrimination in the workforce because they've been barred from promotion because they are not being seen as good in communication, even though that a lot of them are Canadian-born Chinese who've been here for generations, and or they are immigrants with, educated here in English.
That's the reason for Bill 79, which makes employment equity mandatory in Ontario. Employers, employees, and designated group members will participate in ensuring Ontario workplaces are more representative of our diverse society so that we can fully benefit from the contributions of all citizens. Employment equity is intended to ensure equal treatment to all members of our society. Many employers also believe that employment equity will hurt the bottom line. Statistics indicate that employment equity actually makes good business sense. In 1951, less than 30% of Ontario's labor force were from designated groups. In 1986, Aboriginal peoples, persons with disabilities, racial minorities, and women made up more than 60% of Ontario's labor force. Human resources projections estimate that most entrants to Ontario's labor force in the next decade will be designated group members. Unless we commit to employing this growing segment, Ontario won't have the pool of skilled talent required to compete with countries who have a more developed labor pool.
GPMC is committed to employment equity because it makes good business sense. We believe that employment equity is not only the right thing to do, but it can represent a strategic and competitive advantage.
So the bottom line is, equity is good for the bottom line, and it's the right thing to do. One of the biggest myths about employment equity is that workers who are not members of the designated groups and students coming into the workplace will have reduced opportunities. The fear of the non-disadvantaged becoming the disadvantaged of the future. Bill 79 will help all people have equal opportunities without artificial barriers. Barriers built on unfair hiring policies or job requirements that have nothing to do with what's needed to do the job, like height or weight, or discrimination against Aboriginal peoples, racial minorities, women, or people with disabilities. The intention of employment equity isn't to build walls, but rather to eliminate barriers for everyone. I love a good mystery, but I wouldn't want everything I read to be a mystery. Look at all the great authors I'd be missing out on. James Baldwin, Margaret Lawrence, Stephen Hawking, and Thomson Highway. I'd be severely limiting my range of experience and knowledge. Similarly, our economy needs a variety of talents for its future health. Companies such as this have large human resource needs. They must have the most varied possible pool of talent to draw from to remain world competitive. Bill 79 sets into law the principles of employment equity and encourages employers and unions to work together to create workplaces more reflective of Ontario's diverse population.
The Steelworkers believes that the workplace is a place where social change begins. It is the place where change begins. That the workplace mirrors the kind of society that we have built.
Employers will determine what percentage of their workforce is made up of the designated groups: women, racial minorities, people with disabilities, and Aboriginal peoples. Employers will conduct an employment systems review to identify barriers to employment equity. They will then develop an employment equity plan with measurable goals and timetables, implement the plan, and revise the plan periodically. Employers will file certificates with the Employment Equity Commission showing their progress in achieving results. The Commission will play a role in coordinating services in training, education, and networking. Imagine a world without Elijah McCoy, the Canadian son of a runaway slave and inventor of the oil lubricator. Without his invention, our modern engines couldn't run. He created a product that was so successful that even when imitators around the world copied his invention, engine makers insisted on only McCoy lubricators, the real McCoy. And that's where that expression came from. Employment equity in Ontario will give opportunities to the real McCoys of the future. Bill 79 will help achieve employment equity for all Ontarians.